We're just one day away from the beginning of the 2025 Utah football season, and one thing's for sure, it's going to be a special night for Devon Dampier and the Utah Utes in Pasadena.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first view and listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into this show, make sure you like and subscribe. My name is JT Wistrcill, and today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we're going to be talking about what the Utah Utes are going to do against the UCLA Bruins. I can still not believe that we are one day away from kickoff. It is so great to have Utah football back. It's going to be an awesome game. And a reminder, as soon as the game ends, you can come back to Locked On Utes. We're going live right after the final whistle, talk about the biggest plays, the biggest moments, and hopefully, and I do believe, a Utah Utes win. Well, if Utah's going to win this game, they're going to need some guys to show out, and I think that's what they're going to do. So what we're doing on today's show is predicting the stats for the Utah Utes. Who's going to have a big day? Who's going to make an impact on offense, on defense? We're diving into it all right now. Let's start with the quarterback position. I think Devon Dampier is going to have a very special day. I believe he's going to have 3 total touchdowns in this one. There are questions, right? Hey, is he ready to make the jump to play P4 competition consistently? Because let's remember, he did do well in his games last year against P4 competition. You look at his game against Arizona, right? He had 260 passing yards, 130 rushing yards, accounted for 5 total touchdowns in that game, although he did have 2 interceptions there. The next week took on Auburn, had 291 passing yards, but they really limited him on the ground, 31 rushing yards there. Later on in the year, played a borderline P4 team, right, in Washington State, 11 for 25, 174 passing yards, a touchdown, and 193 yards on the ground. Reminder, last year, his final 4 rushing games, Devon Dampier had over 500 yards on the ground. So he was just an electric runner throughout the season, and especially down the stretch. So I do think he's going to use his legs a lot in this game, but I do feel like he's ready for this challenge. I think Devon Dampier probably turns it over once, right, through 12 interceptions last year. I could even see him throwing 2 interceptions in this one early. I think I would not be surprised at all if we look back at the end of the season and said, okay, that was his worst game. Like, he turned it over the most just because it is the first one. And maybe it won't be, because I do have legit questions about that UCLA defense, mostly because it's brand new and most of the strengths from last season are gone. But I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up having his most turnovers in this game than some of the other ones, especially through the airs. He's just taking some chances, still trying to get acclimated in this offense and just get on the same page. And I know he's mostly acclimated because Jason Beck's his offensive coordinator, but hey, new wide receivers, just still some slight tweaks, some slight changes. A P4 defense that started off was he still only played so many times. I think there are questions there, but I do think Devon Dampier has a big day. As I said, 3 total touchdowns. I'm going 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. I think he's running for over 100 yards in this one, around 110 rushing yards and like 205 passing yards. I think he's going to come up big on some third downs. I think that 100-yard rushing, I think a lot of it is going to come on scrambles. I think it's going to be a pass play, and it's like, okay, I got a favorable matchup. Like, there might be one corner with a chance to get me, and I can just outrun the linebacker, and I think that's what's going to happen. There is no quarterback in college football to me making the transition from G5 to P4 with more pressure on him than Devon Dampier. But I really think in this very first game, he's going to hit the ground running and look absolutely spectacular for Utah football. I think Dampier comes up big on third down, makes some plays with his legs, makes some long plays with his arm. I think he's going to have 1 long touchdown pass in this game. I'll go long as in 20-plus yards out. I think he hooks up with, I'm going to go Tobias Merriweather, actually. And speaking of Tobias Merriweather, I think he's going to have a nice showing in this game. I think he's going to have over 70 yards receiving, showing that he has the potential to be Utah's wide receiver 1. He's going to show off that impressive catch radius, the wide ability to run multiple routes too. I think he's going to have a really strong game. Also think we'll see a lot from Larry Simmons. He'll be a dynamic threat, come up big on a couple occasions for Utah, can stretch the field downfield. But I also have Ryan Davis coming through with a touchdown. He's a guy who last year with Devon Dampier, I think those will be Utah's 3 main receivers. And I also think Darren Zipper could get in with a catch or 2 in this one. But I have Ryan Davis getting in for 40 yards. I think there's going to be at least 2 third downs where Devon Dampier buys time, runs around, makes something happen, and finds Ryan Davis. And I can see one of those easily being a 3rd and long situation. So as I said, I think Zipper catches a couple passes here too. And also go Nate Johnson to get a little involved in the receiving game. I think he's going to have around like 30 total yards, like maybe gets an end around, right? A sweet play. And also that Utah uses him and just the wide receiver screen game, gets him the ball in a bevy of ways because he's just a tremendous athlete. And I have a hard time believing Utah is not going to want to involve him in this game plan, right? So I think that's what the receivers are going to do. I'm not expecting much out of the tight end. As of right now, I'm going to go with tight end will not make a catch in this game. Could there be one? Of course, but I just really don't know what to expect out of this tight end group because not much has been talked about them at all. So after that tight end group, who else do I think is going to be in for a big performance? I'm going to go Wayshawn Parker there. I think he's going to go off for 80 yards rushing on the ground. I think Naquan Rodgers will get some carries too, but I think it's just going to be evidence that Parker's getting going and they're going to want to feed the beast. I think Rodgers will get around 30 yards and I think Wayshawn's going to have 80 yards and a rushing touchdown. I really think this offensive line for Utah is going to have a great game. I think Utah runs for over 4 yards per carry in this one. UCLA is going to load the box to try and stop this Utah run game, but I believe the wide receivers make enough plays on the outside. Like I think Tobias Merriweather, it's going to be a case of Utah is bludgeoning the Bruins on the ground, just large run after large run, like 5 plus yards per carry, as I mentioned, and UCLA loads the box. They leave Merriweather one-on-one, no safety over top, and Devon Dampier gives him a chance, and Merriweather will make a play up top. And I think the Utah Utes are going to make plenty of plays too. I think Utah's offensive line looks every bit the unit that could be the best offensive line in the country. As I said, I have more top 10 right now, maybe top 5. I don't know if I'm there quite yet, but with a great performance here, I very well could be. I'm banking on improvements from those veterans. I think the tackles will continue to get better on the outside. And I think Devon Dampier will get sacked one time in this game, but I'm going to go it's not the offensive line's fault. I'm going to go it's Dampier trying to make something happen and ends up getting taken down. Still crazy that he was only sacked 5 times last year, like going against the P4 teams that he did, just the fact that he was that incredibly elusive. But I do think Utah's offense impresses this one. I said yesterday, I have Utah scoring 32 points. So I do think we get our first look at Dylan Curtis's leg. I think he's going to knock in a 30 to 40 something yard field goal, but I do expect Utah's offense to have success. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it takes them a drive or two to get going, but once they're in sync, I think this team will soar. And I do think they get going early just because what travels well in college football is a physical run game and a defense. We'll talk about that defense a little more in a moment, but that offensive line is going to put in the work up front. I think Utah clearly creates holes in the run game. I think they do a good job of working up to the second level, and I have extreme confidence in this Utah team to be able to push around a Bruins front seven that lost a lot. Yes, UCLA won a lot of games down the stretch last year, but everything that was really going for them left. A lot of their players in the transfer portal are gone. And it's a secondary that has some pieces I like, but there's just so much new stuff. The best part was the linebackers. They're gone. They have one defensive tackle that's pretty good coming back a season ago, but so much unknown, so much unproven with this Bruins team. How can they all come together and make an impact? And I just don't think they're going to be able to in time to stop Devon Dampier. I think Utah runs Rupshaw on the ground. I could see this team having over 400 yards of total offense in this game. I think they'll hover right around that 380, like 410 plus in action. I think Jason Beck's going to come up with an incredible game plan, putting his playmakers and his quarterback in position to find success. And that's why I think Utah is going to do a lot in this game. I think they're going to find a lot of success. And I think Utah scoring 4 touchdowns, 3 of them for Devon Dampier, 1 on the ground, 2 through the air, Tobias Merriweather, Larry Simmons, and then Wayshawn Parker gets in the end zone too. I also wouldn't rule it out that the defense gets a touchdown in this one. I'm not going to go that far, but I do think the defense is going to get some takeaways and make some plays. So who on the Utah defense is stepping up in Pasadena, this Rose Bowl venue? Utah on the defensive end. I'm going to tell you in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. The endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, it's all just one big headache. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. Are you a Utah fan in Pasadena on the fence about going? Well, this is your opportunity. You can head over to Game Time today and get in on the action. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seats before buying. So you can take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the promo. Again, create an account. The promo code is LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time to get in on the college football action today. All righty, Utah defense. Are they in for one heck of a performance? I believe they are. I think this is going to be a very fun Utah defensive performance that gets after it, not just because of the Utah personnel that I like, but also because of just the state of this UCLA offense. They have 2 returning starters, so a lot new on that offensive line. You have Nico playing in his first year with the offensive coordinator from Indiana coming over. You got no wide receiver over 400 yards. I know Mikey Matthews is there, but let's see him put it all together in week 1. Running back I like. He's a Cal transfer over 600 yards. I think him and Nico are good players, but I think this is just the best time to get this UCLA offense. With that offensive line going to be trying to communicate under the fire of just trying to figure out what Utah is going to do defensively, bringing all kinds of crazy blitzes their way. I really think Utah's defense has the advantage in this matchup as well, too. I think Nico's going to turn it over twice. I think he's once going to get picked off by Teo Johnson. He's going to get frustrated on a 3rd and long and just throw it up there, and Teo's going to take it away. I could see that being like the game ceiling pick, but I could also see it just happening early on in the game of Nico trying to make something happen before halftime. And then the other one I think is a Logan Fano strip sack. I think Logan Fano is a really good game in this one. I think he is going to be a guy we notice off the edge. Talked about it a little bit as the season drew closer. I just started to think about that Logan Fano that had those 3.5 sacks back in the 23 season before the injury against Oregon State, and how last year, he didn't get to spend it training. He spent it rehabbing. This year, spent it training. And I think he is eager to have a monster year for this Utah football team. It's technically is his senior season. He has another one back because of his red shirt with BYU the first year. So we'll see if he takes it, but his brother's going to go pro. I'm sure Logan would love to join him, and I think it starts with a big performance in Pasadena. I actually have him getting home twice. I think we're going to see the repertoire pass rush moves that Fano's been working on developing, and I think he's a threat in this backfield with a UCLA team that is replacing their left tackle, and I think that's where Fano's going to line up from. I think he's going to have some success. I also just don't think, even though I like Thomas the back, I don't think UCLA is going to have a lot of success running the ball. I have my questions about this Utah defensive line from a pass rush perspective, but Aliki Vaimahi, Dallas Vakalahi, and just the tradition that Utah has of producing stout run defenders, I think that shows up here. And I think this Utah defense eats in the trenches. I think they make life hard on the Bruins run game. And even if I have questions about, hey, who else can get home? I said, I think Fano's going to have a good game. I think this Utah team steps up defensively. I do think we also see John Henry Daly answer some of that question a little bit about who steps up. I have John Henry Daly getting home with a sack. We heard he won a lot of one-on-ones during spring ball, and there was just a lot of buzz at him with Big 12 Media Day. So I think he's going to get in with a sack as well, too. And I think this UCLA team will find themselves in a lot of 3rd and long situations. Don't think the run game's going to be there because of how good the linebacking core is going to be in this one. I have Lander Barton having a monster season debut. I have him with 8 tackles. I think he's going to get 2 of those for loss. Actually, I'll go 3 tackles for loss for Lander Barton. I think he's going to be living in the backfield. I think Lander Barton is going to have, it's a lot, but a Devin Lloyd type senior season. Does that mean he's going to be a 1st round pick? I don't know about that, but I think he's going to be arguably the best player on this Utah defense. As we sit here right now, I will say that I think that's what he will end as. I think he's going to go over 100 tackles. I think he's just going to be all over the place. I see him getting home for a sack in this game, just making life hard on Nico. I think he's going to be everywhere, flying to the ball, showing off the physicality that's going to, we've seen how big and strong he is. He's just going to bowl over offensive linemen too. I'm expecting big things out of Lander Barton. Also after Lander, I think Leavani Damuni looks really good in his return. I think he's going to have 6 tackles. I think Damuni's going to make some plays. Like I could see him having a pass deflected too, where it's just like, look at Leavani Damuni just making a difference. The veteran, knowing what the UCLA offense is going to try to do through his film study and prep, which is a little hard to film study and prep for this game because you're watching what Indiana did offensively, but also what Nico did well at Tennessee and how those will marry each other together, since we have not seen what this UCLA team looks like with this personnel, with the changes they'll have to make on offense with the new offensive coordinator. But I think this Utah team's ready, and I think Leavani Damuni, a big part of the reason why. I also think Rabbit Evans is a big part of the reason why. Evans has been a guy I've said I think he's going to break out this season. I have Rabbit Evans going for 5 tackles in this one. I think he gets 2 tackles for loss here. I think he's just going to be a guy who's flying all over the field, making plays. Utah's going to line him up all over the place. Utah loves to have fun with their strong safety in the box. They'll put him all over the place and allow him just to feast, and I think that's what Rabbit's going to do. I think he's going to blow up plays. He made a couple of just wild plays against Iowa State last year. That was kind of his coming out game, And I think that's only going to continue into 25. I think he hits the ground running, and I think he looks like a game wrecker out there. I already said he's going to have 5 tackles. I think his impact on the field will even exceed those lofty statistics. So those are my top 3 for tackles: Lander, DeMooney, Evans. Also would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Like, let me know, who do you think is going off for Utah football in this one? Continuing on with predictions, I said who I think is getting some of those first couple of sacks. I got Fano with 2, Lander 1, John Henry Daly 1. Also go with Jonathan Hall late in this game to like really blow one up. I think Utah's going to send him on a blitz, and he's just going to come through like maybe in the A gap, a heat-seeking missile. It's going to be a miscommunication on the interior of the offensive line, and Hall is just going to blast Nico on that one too. And I think Nico does get beat up in this game. I'm getting sacked 5 times. I think this is a Morgan Scally game, a Logan Fano and Morgan Scally game. I think Logan Fano has a really good performance in this one, gets home a couple times, creates some havoc, and then Morgan Scally is going to dial up some blitzes that will leave this new and retooling offensive line for UCLA confused. And it's going to be a frustrating debut for Nico. He said, like in a press conference, right, that if they play well, they think they should really take it to Utah. I just don't think this team's going to play well. I think there's too many new pieces trying to come together. I think the deficit they have in the trenches, particularly on the defensive line, just compared to what Utah brings, but even on the offensive line, I just don't think this group is ready for Morgan Scally, what Utah is ready to cook up. People act like this Utah football program has fallen off. The truth is they just didn't have good quarterback play last year. They were in every single game. They're going to have better quarterback play. I think it's going to be great quarterback play in a lot of ways. And I think because of that, this Utah beast of a program is going to be awakened, and that defensive culture is still intact, right? This defense averaged 20 points per game allowed last year. I think they'll take a slight step back this year with 22 points per game. Part of that being the quality of quarterbacks in the Big 12. Part of that still being some of the questions I have about the pass rush, but I think they look really strong in this first game against the UCLA offensive line that I don't think is as strong. And like I said, this is the best time for Utah to get UCLA too, with all these new pieces starting and trying to come together. Oh, also didn't get to talk about what I think the secondary is going to do. We talked about the pick, but I think Smith Snowden's going to have a couple passes deflected in this game or defended. I think he's going to be an absolute magnet in coverage. I think that we'll see Blake Cotton on the outside also have a nice performance. So same thing for Elijah Scooby Davis. Mentioned Teo with the pick as well, but he'll also bat away a pass. I see this Utah secondary really stepping up against an unproven UCLA wide receiver core. It's funny too, because like Utah got to practice against Mikey Matthews. So I'm curious to see like if they can just recognize certain things, if he has certain tells that they know what he's going to try to do out there. It's just one of those things for practicing against a guy in the transfer portal era that so much, and I know things change, but I feel like they'll be cued in and locked in well on what he wants to do, right? So I'm also, I don't know about you guys, I'm just hoping, and we mentioned this on the crossover a little bit yesterday, please give us a better game than the 2023 14-7 game. I'm all for some good defense, but that was just brutal offense too. That was Kyle Whittingham not letting Andy Ludwig really do anything with Nate Johnson. Just like they would not let Nate even run the ball because they were worried about him fumbling, and it was just abysmal. If it wasn't for Karene Reed's pick on the first play of the game, that game would have ended 7-7. Like it was dreadful. But the year before that in Pasadena, it was a high scoring game that was a lot of fun that Utah actually didn't end up on the other side of. This one, I want Utah to be high scoring and obviously end up on the right side of it. And I do think that's what this Utah team is going to be able to do. I actually think going back to what I think they're going to do for Nico, I think they're really going to frustrate him. I think he's going to throw for over 200 yards, but I do think he's going to turn it over twice. And the Bruins will have less than 100 yards on the ground. Let's not forget, in all his games against the best defenses he played last year, Nico didn't throw for over 200 yards. So I'm factoring in his sophomore improvement there. I think he makes some plays. He makes some things happen with his legs and with his arm. I'm not calling him Cam Newton like Kyle Whittingham would, but I do think Nico has a good sophomore year with the Bruins. I think Tennessee will miss him, but I do think in the first game, it's going to take some time. It's going to be rough. He's not going to have a lot of help out there outside of his running back. Offensive line struggling, wide receivers not getting open, and I think Nico has a couple turnovers that sink the Bruins in this one. I have Utah holding UCLA to 17 points, and I could see it being 10 for a lot of this game. I'm feeling good about the matchup Morgan Scally has on his hands, continuity and the culture of Utah's defense coming through to frustrate the Bruins offense. What would this win mean for Utah football? What are we thinking ahead of the season? I want to hear from you guys in the comments below, and I'm going to give my final thoughts before Utah football kicks off in one moment. But first, today's show is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On Utes fan, are you still paying full prices for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or the Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. You can use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought it was good. It was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offer may vary based on user and location. You can go to upside.com for the terms and condition. Head over to Upside today. Guys, I still can't believe it. It's here. The season. Utah football is officially back. I mean, just how great is that? Like, how long have we waited and talked about, and I love talking about recruiting, and I love talking about preseason rankings and spring ball and all, it's all part of the cycle. But the reason we do this, the reason I'm lucky enough to have this platform that you guys choose to listen to, and I'm forever grateful for, is because of how much we love Utah football. And it's finally back. It's here. I think this is going to be an incredible season for Utah. I said, I think they're going 10-2. I think that starts with a win against UCLA. I got losses to ASU and Baylor, but outside of that, Utah taking care of business against Texas Tech, bouncing back in against BYU this year. I think they're getting the better of BYU. I think down the stretch of the end of the year, massive wins against Kansas State and Kansas. I think this is a team that's really going to impress this year in the Big 12 race. I think they're going to come out on top in some of those tiebreakers. And I do think that Utah gets in the Big 12 title game. I think they win it, and I think they make their first ever college football playoff. I do have them with 2 losses. Unfortunately, it means they're probably going on the road, which is going to be tough to win. But I wouldn't rule it out, this team hosting a college football playoff game. They're probably going to have to go 11-1 in order to make that happen. Maybe they could go 11-2 if they lost in the conference title game and still get in, but you're probably not hosting a game at that point. So it'll be interesting to see. His Utah team's going to be tested. There's a lot of really quality teams in the Big 12, Texas Tech, Baylor, ASU, Kansas State, even BYU. The totality of their team, I think, is solid. I just think the quarterback position and a couple of the other key spots wound up holding that BYU team back. But his Utah team's ready for the gauntlet that is the Big 12 conference. That quarterback, that offensive coordinator, that offensive line, Kyle Whittingham, this Utah defense, Morgan Scalley, it's a recipe for success. We said it earlier. Utah was a quarterback away last year. They got that guy. I think the results are going to be huge for the Utah Utes. I think it's the Utah offense. I said it's going to be a top 6 offense to me this upcoming season. I think the defense is going to dismantle just about everyone they play. I said they'll take a slight step back. That means I think they're going to allow like 22 points per game. They'll be like 2 points per game worse just because of some of the pass rush things, but still have a top 3 to 4 defense in the Big 12 this upcoming season. I think this is going to be a year to remember for Utah football, and it starts with getting a win in Pasadena. Let's not forget, this Utah team has lost their last 3 trips they've made out to the Rose Bowl. They lost in the two true Rose Bowl games on New Year's Day, and then they lost last time they were there just against UCLA. But I know these two teams are 5-7, Utah and UCLA, but so clearly in different directions to me. Utah just needed a quarterback, all these one-score games right there to be had. UCLA got blown out a lot, and the one thing they had going for them, that defense, they lost so much of it. I'm not going to sit here and act like Utah didn't lose things, but they lost 9 key contributors, and they get 9 back when you look at guys that rotated in, like played a role that we feel solid about. That's what happened to Utah football, and I think what's going to happen to Utah football in this one is they put the country on display. I think they put the nation on notice as much of it that's up. Like, I think Tennessee fans will be up watching Nico, but I think a lot of people will tune in if they did go to bed on Sunday morning and be like, wow, look at what that Utah team did, man. I'm sure they'll be talking about, like, I actually think Ohio State's going to beat Texas. I think Julian Sain will do a good job there. And I think Arch Manning will struggle just a little bit on the road. So I'm going Ohio State in that one. Obviously, Clemson LSU will draw a ton of the headlines. I think Clemson's going to win that one. I am a believer in the hype and what Dabo's done, but I think one of the takeaways in this 32-17 win is going to be like, oh, look out for Utah. I think a lot of analysts are going to be, man, I don't even know if they'll tweet out about it, but they'll just be taking notice and being like, okay, this is why everyone was kind of scared of Utah coming into this season. Joe Klatt always says, death taxes Utah football. I think that's what we start to see. from this Utah team once again. The old reliable Utah football with what I believe will be a top 10 finisher in the Heisman voting race in Devon Dampier. And I think a team that's ready to roll in this Big 12 title race. A tough schedule, we said it, but no back-to-back road games, buys falling at a good time too. And the schedule has some different little breaks kind of in it. Those last 3 games are brutal. But even, Utah plays Tech, and then I just still don't think West Virginia is going to be very good this year. Like, maybe I'm wrong, and it's tough to win a cross-country road game. That'll still be a game, I think, but I feel good about Utah going on the road and getting a win there. So just to me, as I said, the schedule lines up for this Utah team to go in and have success, for Devon Dampier to have a massive season coming up for this program too. So I'm just looking forward to seeing Utah football put the Big 12 back on notice of, hey, this Utah football program, it hasn't gone anywhere. It was a little down last year. Let's not forget 2 years ago, they still were ranked at one point in the top 25, and which was a miracle considering just the injury to Cam and backup quarterback play and some of the things there. But this Utah football team is still right here. I think Utah sends Kyle Whittingham out on the right way. Some final last predictions for the year outside of like just what the guys are doing, as I mentioned, which I've talked about last week. I did like season projections. I said Devon Dampier, 4,000 total yards. I think Lander has a huge year. Wayshawn Parker, 1,000 yards. Dampier not sacked very frequently. We'll go Kyle Whittingham will retire after this season. I think that we see Morgan Scalley get to be that head coach in waiting, and we take away the waiting, and it's his time after this 2025 campaign. And I think after this game as well against UCLA, we'll just be talking about, like, I'm so excited Morgan Scalley is staying in Salt Lake City because he is an incredible defensive coordinator. It would be crushing for Utah to lose him. And I think he's going to be absolutely transcendent as I think he's going to be a really good head coach. Maybe not transcendent, but I think he's just going to keep up the tradition of what Utah has built too. So really looking forward seeing this Utah football team take the field. The breakout players, I said, I got Rabbit Evans absolutely tearing it up this year. Is probably my number one breakout guy right now. I think Tobias Merriweather is another one that I'll say breaks out. Wayshawn Parker, I know he had 700 yards. I just feel like on the Big 12 stage, he'll get the credit and due he deserves with John Mateer and that Washington State offense taking so much of the shine away last year. I think we see a monster game and monster season from Wayshawn Parker and from this Utah team. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lone will live up to the hype. I think Utah's offensive line will end as a top 5 unit in the country. Even though I have my questions about them, I think we do see the improvements and they're able to get there. I think things come together for Utah. I think it's going to be a special year, but let me know in the comments below. Do you guys think I'm right? Do you think Utah is ready to roll? Do you think Utah will be able to steal the shine from some of the biggest games in the country? Like I think Notre Dame's losing at Miami. So that'll be another one, right? Miami will take some shine there. And I think TCU might be the biggest Big 12 winner this weekend. I think they are going to beat UNC on Monday night, but hopefully Utah can get in some of the shine. I also think Baylor, we'll see later tonight, Baylor will take on Auburn. I think that's a big game for the Big 12 SEC thing. I want to see Baylor take care of business. I think Sawyer Robertson and them will. I think it's going to be a good weekend for the Big 12 overall. I said on the Big 12 squad show yesterday, which makes you guys check that out if you haven't. I said the only game I think the Big 12 is probably losing this weekend is Georgia Tech, Colorado. But outside of that, I'm feeling pretty good about the Big 12 this upcoming weekend. And I'm obviously feeling fantastic about the Utah Utes. And I'm just feeling great in general because Utah football is back. Thank you again to all of you who continue to listen and support this show. Look forward to chatting with you guys live. As soon as the game ends, head over to YouTube. I will be live here taking your comments and your questions. If you're in the market for a second listen, mention the Big 12 squad, Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Football. Any of our shows have you covered because the season is here. Week 1, we're rocking, we're rolling, and we can't wait to be with you live after the game. We'll see you for Utah UCLA's recap. Go Utes as always. Utah football is back, everyone. Rejoice, and we'll see you after the game.